It is MindShift Friday. Karibu Sana. MindShift Friday is where we get to look at different things we have believed or concepts in society, put them to the test and ask ourselves, is there another perspective to what we have believed? So I'm sure you must have heard or you must have been told, work on your weaknesses. Remember when I was in high school, maths, physics, chemistry was not my thing. Not my thing at all. In fact, maths was so not my thing. By the time I was in Form 2, and I know my parents are listening, I would go for PE during maths, me and 3 or 4 of my friends. And by the way, I was the class prefect. We had a maths teacher, Asian maths teacher. He was so easy to intimidate, and so we would just walk out and he would not do much about it. He was a very humble guy, and I think back and I think, oh yeah, why did we do that to him? And I tried working on this maths and this month, but ilikata, and I keep thinking, that time I tried to work on the math, had I worked on maybe the history, because I loved history, or the languages, I loved English, would the situation have been better? And so that's what we want to look at today. I'm sure you've heard of the Pareto Principle, 80-20 principle. How does that apply in the conversation we are having today? Those are some of the things we want to get into. And as we get into that, do you know your strengths? How do we know our strengths? This morning, we get to hang out with the Regional Director, Ashoka East Africa, Vincent Otieno. Vincent, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me on this conversation. Really
Karibu sana. I'm chunguliaring that library of yours so that I can see which book to borrow. Good to have you on the show today.
There's a lot.
We also have the founder of Better People Consulting, my good friend Paul Nguni. Paul, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, James. Very good to see you again, and great to discuss these very amazing and important subjects. So, good morning.
Every time I talk to you, I feel like a better person.
Absolutely. You cannot interact with me and fail to become better. So
yes. So let's begin by talking about this Pareto Principle, because I think it forms a good chunk of our discussion for today. So maybe, Paul, you can explain to us this Pareto Principle, 80-20. What is it all about?
So Pareto Principle is called Pareto because it was introduced by a gentleman called Pareto. And it tells us that in life we can structure our lives, our activities into 80-20. Meaning that a lot of times we focus on things in an unstructured way. And like today, when we are talking about weaknesses and strengths, sometimes we tend to spend a lot of time focusing on our weaknesses and very little time focusing on our strengths. Now, Pareto Principle tells us that we need to look at what makes the best impact in our lives. And give it 80% of our time, because success in life or the great achievements we'll achieve in life are heavily dependent on our self-mastery. And our self-mastery is heavily dependent on our self-awareness. So if we are aware of ourselves, and there is no one person that is without great strengths, and there is no one person without great weaknesses, if we look at where our weaknesses are and spend a lot of time developing those strengths, and probably only about 20% of the time developing our weaknesses, because it's not easy developing weaknesses. And we'll delve into that a little more. But this 80-20 rule simply means look at what significantly contributes into your life positively. Spend most of the time doing that, because that's going to give you success, happiness, and greatness in life.
Okay. Vincent, I'm sure you probably have been told to work on your weaknesses. I've been told several times. And when you really think about it, it kind of makes sense, because if I'm strong in this area, I'm already strong in it. you know, I'm already strong in it. So this area that's a bit low, why don't I spend time working on it so that at least it can move up, then the results can be better because this one is already here. But does it always work that way?
Thank you, James. A good question. And I think Paul has really defined it, laid the context really well in terms of the Pareto rule.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, you know, in simple, the guy is called Coach. I mean, he struck gold, literally, by giving us this as a principle or even as a secret. And again, also what I must say is that, you know, most of the time we look at some of these principles or secrets and we want to assume them. But, you know, facts are stubborn. If you look at, you know, where 80-20% rule has been applied, whether it's with income distribution globally or even at the national level, you'll see the greatest, you know, resources is with the 20%. 80% of the GDP is controlled by 20%. And if you look at also you come down at the macro level, you as an individual. And I like your question, why must you not spend time trying to bring up your weaknesses and, you know, spend that time refining your strengths? And it's very simple, James. It's basically where the gold is. So you don't spend time trying to find gold when you already know where it is. You know, if you're using that, you know, stone as the most precious of stones.
Yeah.
So you spend your resources, you spend your time, you spend every asset that you have at your disposal to get the gold, to refine the gold, to get it, you know, to be where it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
So it also relates quite well with what we are always told: work smart, not hard, or work hard, not smart. Sometimes it's really hard to figure out what is it that should I be doing. So when I was being told, and I like to talk about your weakness, is the same thing. Like, why can't you spend more time, because you're already good in this? Spend more time in, you know, bringing these other areas up the curve. But what you are doing at that moment is that you're taking time away from what you would have been refining, because you already have it. You would have been refining this to get from it being good to get like better and to become an expert in that area.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that it's a trap we fall into a lot, you know, at the individual level, I think at the organizational level, even at the national level, probably even at the global level. We're not spending time in defining and perfecting what we already have.
Yeah.
Perfection, we know, is a journey. So if you really want to embark on that journey, then it makes sense that you only you put all your assets, all your resources at the disposal of that process, to get to that process of perfection, to get to that point where you can say, now I'm an expert in this area, instead of taking that time on something that you definitely know will not even lead you to that sweet spot where you're applying your skills, your knowledge, your passion, you know, your experience and everything for success.
Okay. When we talk about strengths, what exactly are we talking about here, Paul? Because is my strength, because the assumption would be my strength must be something I'm good at. But maybe the thing I'm good at, maybe I'm good at sleeping. Is that a strength? So how do I know what to consider as a strength?
All right. So you consider properties or traits that you have that are beneficial to you, to other people, as a strength or weakness, or even the general competencies that lead us to productivity.
Okay.
So I would not leave productivity into this. For instance, there are some people, just like you indicated, that are very good in some things, like, say, good in arithmetics. So they will make very good accountants. So you can be very productive as an accountant. But there are other people who are not good at all with math, but they are very good in, let me use history, like you called it. Now you can use that to put it into productivity. And probably let's even bring it to the physical world. If you look at sports world, there are people who are very good at athletics. Look at Julius, for instance. He is very good at marathon. But if you tell him to go to play football, I mean, you are missing the guy. And there are other people who are very good in football. You tell them to go to athletics, you are messing them up. So look at the traits and natural giftings, talents that you do have that that add into life, that add benefits, add productivity into life. So you are right. There are so many of us who want to sleep, but how productive is that going to help us become in the world? And when I am defining purpose, remember productivity and the talents and gifts that God has given us are a great part of our purpose. Actually, the talents that we naturally have are a great indicator of our purpose on earth. And I usually define 3P of purpose. First P being the passion, those things that you are very passionate in, and what differentiates that passion with any other thing, with say things that we do that do not have productivity, is professionalism. So if you add passion or you add professionalism to passion, meaning that you become a professional in the area that you're very good in, then you can easily convert that to profitability. So passion plus professionalism or profession and bringing profitability completes your purpose. And you know your purpose by looking at the areas you're very strong in, and they are adding into lives, meaning they are bringing benefit to you, they are bringing benefit to people around you, they are bringing benefit to the world. That's what I would call strengths. And of course, they are accompanied by weaknesses that we will continue discussing.
So I'm just wondering, Vincent, so are we saying we totally ignore our weaknesses and entirely focus in the areas where we know we are strong and we are very productive? Or are there instances where you also need to put in some work on your weaknesses?
Yeah, good question. So the thing is this, James, just to tie it back even to your question, what are our strengths, right? So there's so many ways we can look at it, from the psychological perspective, the sense about what side of your brain is most active, is it the left side, is it the right side? But I like the way Paul put it in terms of where you get a sense of fulfillment, that you are productive, and where you spend as little time as possible in making it work, right? And also that this is something that can be acknowledged by other people. So in business, your stakeholders, your customers, and all that. But yeah, as you work on your strength, as you get it right, as you focus on that, which basically means that you just have enough time you can think of, you can sort of allocate to these other areas of your weakness. But the 80-20 rule basically is not that you completely leave out areas that you probably need to excel. You don't. I mean, it's not tenable. There are things that you will now learn through. There are skills that you need to train around, right? There is knowledge that you need to acquire. There is experience that you need to have. So it is not to say you completely ignore these because you already know your areas of strength, but you focus on your areas of strength, and in one way or the other, and there's so many examples that you'll see when you look at some of these case studies of how this is really applied. In working your strength, then you bring up that area that is also sort of weak, And again, if it is in relation, if it is tied to what you are primarily about, what you are doing, right? So it is not about just completely ignoring. There is always the basic minimum around our areas of weaknesses. You were talking about your maths. So there's a basic arithmetic that I am quite sure that you acquired, and that is helping okay, I've been the basics, and that is fine. But then your area of strength, focusing on that, I think is what now propels you to be an expert in whatever area that you are an expert. So not completely saying, get the basic around that area, you know. And again, as you work on your strength, like I said before, and that area of weakness is also tied to the success of you as an individual in that particular area. One way or the other, it will pull it, you know, up the curve as well.
Okay.
But don't spend so much time on it. It's the other way around. Spend time on what you already have. Like I said, it's about refining the goal rather than moving around trying to find another. You cannot convert a bronze into gold, right?
Yeah.
So you cannot get silver into gold. So you just work on the goal, because the goal is where this is what is going to give you results. This is what is going to define you. But at the same time, accept the bronze where it is, accept the silver where it is, but just make sure that, yeah, they are recognizable bronzes, they are recognizable silvers, and you don't ignore mining them.
Okay. You know, when we talk about strengths and weaknesses, I see, Paul, that there are those people who understand. Let's look at it from a business perspective. There are those people who understand what their strength is, and they know what their weakness is, and so they have the resources. They can hire somebody else who is good in the area where they're weak. So I'm doing this business. I don't like accounts that much. You know, me, I'm into marketing and product development, and so I hire somebody else who will take care of the accounting side of it. But what happens when you are not able to outsource somebody to cater for the area where you are weak, and you have to cater for everything, because everything is important for the success of what you're trying to do and what you're trying to bring up? How do you handle situations like that? Because I can't just focus on the marketing and product development and ignore the accounting because it's my weakness. What do I do in an area like that?
Very good question, James. First, we need to appreciate that our weaknesses and our strengths are two sides of the same coin.
Okay.
meaning that if we only focus on our strengths and we ignore our weaknesses, then our weaknesses are likely to drag down our areas of strength.
Yeah.
Because if you're trying to move to the front using your strengths and you're not working on your weaknesses, then your weaknesses are going to pull you back. That is where we need to spend a bit of time, which is 20%, to try and improve that. And even before we improve it, you said very well that there's some people who know their strengths very well, and there are other people who do not know.
Yeah.
So it's important first to appreciate that there are different ways through which we can know our strengths and weaknesses. We have 9 scientific ways of letting us know our strengths, like just know where you are strong. If you are not good in maths, you know you are not good in numbers. If you are not good in athletics, you are not good in athletics. So you know yourself. Another way we can get to know ourselves is through other people. Other people can tell us you're good in this, you're not good in this. But there are also scientific ways through which we can get to know ourselves better. I am a coach, and most of the times when I coach, the first lesson is usually a lesson on personality, knowing your personality, and knowing when you do a personality profiling, it brings out all the strengths and it brings out all the weaknesses that you do have. Now, when you know that you have some weaknesses to work on, there are some that you can work on easily, and there are others that are difficult to work on. All right. And you gave a good example. If, for instance, you note that you're very good with people out there, and you're not very good in the office work, administration work, then what you need to do is not to spend time doing that which can be done by another person in a much better way, but you do what you do, and you get somebody else to help you do what you cannot do well. A good example in business, for instance, is some people are very good at seeing the big picture. We call it the strategic mind. Some people are very good in being strategic. They know what needs to be done. They know the route that will work. They know the direction that needs to be followed, and they exactly know what needs to be done. But they are very poor in doing it themselves. because they are a little impatient, because when you start working on something, you need a lot of patience. You need attention to a lot of detail. So when you're very focused on the big picture, you are likely to lose the essence of the detail. So what you need to do is get somebody else, and this person could be in form of a business partner. This person could be in form of an employee that you hire, and therefore you can outsource, or you can delegate, or you can learn. So learning obviously is going to take a lot of time, but having somebody else in form of a partner, in form of an employee to help you do things that you're not good at is a great way of overcoming your weaknesses. However, even if you're not working on your weaknesses to completely overcome them, you need to work on your weaknesses so that they do not pull your strengths down.
I like that.
And learning a number of techniques on doing that is important, and therefore we need to focus on our strengths, but continually working in and using different strategies that will help us also ensure that our weaknesses do not pull us down.
Okay, we'll come back to this because it seems like this is a major issue for a good number of people who are texting in. It's still the same question: how do I know my strengths? People are stuck there. In fact, there's one who's saying, I don't know my talents, I don't know my passion, I don't know my purpose, I don't know my strengths. What am I good at? I don't know. What kind of life is this I am living? You know, it's even when people go for interviews, it's one of those questions that a lot of people have a hard time answering. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? In fact, a good number of people say I don't have a weakness because you assume if I say I have a weakness, I may not get this job. And even their strengths, they are neither here nor there. They are very general things. So we'll come back to that question shortly. It's 27 minutes after 7, MindShift Friday. We are talking about working on your weaknesses or working on your strengths. If you have any questions for us today, 20316 SMS line, WhatsApp number 0786316316. This one is from Martin. You say, for the guys who haven't yet figured out their strengths or weaknesses, they shouldn't worry much. Even for Jesus, we have no idea what he was doing for 30 years. What we are enjoying is based on what he did for 3 years. My friend Martin, I knew you had a comment somewhere there that was very interesting. Pastor James, thank you for this great topic. I'm being enlightened. In a strategic plan class, I was told that I should work on my strengths to exploit them and on my weaknesses to mitigate them. I think that's a good statement right there. So coming back to you, Vincent, a lot of people have no idea what their strengths are or what their weaknesses are, because after all, when you really think about it, it's not something we are necessarily taught. We kind of have to discover it along the way. And sometimes we make the assumption that our strengths are the things we like. That because I liked this, then okay, then it must be my strength. So I know Paul had begun saying something based on this question, but what can you add in terms of how does somebody begin to discover what their strengths are and what their weaknesses are?
Thank you, James, for that question. I like what Martin was saying, that Jesus probably didn't figure out what it was. But I think they're quite, I mean, a few things in terms of just knowing how, you want to show up generally. So I think Jesus was on a mission, and he was on a mission. And that is one thing, even for you to figure out what are your strengths. But then again, James, you're right. We don't get to know this from the word go. We don't get to know our strengths or our weaknesses from the word go. But along the journey, we just develop some inclination towards some things, and it starts there. There is an interest, and then also you find there are things that you naturally dispense of easily without putting a lot of effort, without struggling. You don't ask, should I or should I not, right? So for me, it's those kind of questions. Do you get to a point where you're supposed to do something, or you have an interest around something, but you're doubting? It's that doubt. So that doubt is just like maybe your North Star. It tells you it's the backing dog. If you don't have confidence around something, there are two things. Probably you've not nurtured the right skills for it, and you have an opportunity to nurture those right skills. But also it could be that right there, that is where you're weak. It doesn't come easy for you. It does not come naturally for you. You don't get the inclination. You just have to have some other drive. There is no incentive whatsoever that will help you, make you prioritize it. But then for your strength, you don't need any push. I mean, it's just something that you want to go for it, right? You don't need any incentive for it. You just, this is something that I can do, and I can do it with ease. So for me, it's all about that how to identify is that which you naturally feel inclined towards, and with time as you do it, easily manifests productivity and results that are expected.
Okay.
And then weakness is that which you find you can't just get the energy. You can't you don't get the vibe, and everything around it is just not your thing in a way, right? So even with training, with mitigating it through experience, coaching, and all that, still does not give you the kind of confidence that you have when you're operating in your area of strength.
I want to throw a spanner in the works.
Sorry.
I want to throw a spanner in the works, Paul. Maybe you can help retrieve this spanner I'm about to throw in the works. You may think,
bring it on.
Yeah, you may think something is your strength, and yet it's your weakness. Example, you love talking. Talking comes easily to you. In your mind, it is your strength. But it's a weakness because when you talk, you don't know when to weigh your words. And when not to say this and instead say this. And I have friends who are like that. They are always talking. But their strength is also their greatest weakness, because I wish ulikuwa umeanza vizuri. I wish you had stopped here. But now that you have added this other statement, that's destroyed everything you have said. So your strength is actually your greatest weakness. How do you handle that?
Yeah. You're so right. We call it a double-edged sword. Our strengths at the same time can be our big weaknesses. So this gentleman that knows that he talks a lot, but sometimes he goes overboard, is talking his strength. Well, it may not necessarily be his weakness because he goes overboard. It still is a strength, but he needs to know how to control it.
Okay.
And that is why we say, even when you are a genius at something, you got to be trained. You got to hone the skill. You got to work on it. By the way, it does not mean because we are strong in something, we will not work on it. It simply means that if we are strong in something, we got to continue honing it. We got to continue making it better. And that is why, if you remember, I defined the 3P of purpose. Once you know you are very good in a certain area, let's say you are an extroverted person, and you think you can do very good in sales, you can do very good in marketing, you can do very good as an MC or a facilitator or a host of an event or something, then you need to make it a profession. You need to go to school and get some training. I usually, I know many people say what you're strong in, probably you do not need training in. For instance, I know there are people who are gifted. They know they're gifted in music, but they don't want to, they just want to sing.
Yes.
There is, think of it, even someone that is gifted as an athlete, if they don't go for training, they are not going to make it to break records.
In fact, it's interesting you say that. Sorry for cutting you short, because it's also something I wanted to ask, because I find that we live in a world where average is acceptable. Average is okay. So if you are slightly above average, you are celebrated. And so you don't see the need of becoming exceptional. Because above average is working well for me, everybody else is way below average, and average is kind of the acceptable one, So I think that goes hand in hand with what you're saying.
Absolutely, and that you can see now. You can now see how we entertain mediocrity, how we entertain just average, sometimes even below average, and you're just okay with it.
Yeah.
Just because we know we are good in something and we just do good enough. We need to go, ahead. We need to become the best that we can be. And now that is why teachers, coaches, mentors, people that can help you become a better version of yourself, actually the best version of yourself. And I like always using the word Kaizen when it comes to continuous improvement of ourselves.
Yes.
Because if you're very good in something, you do not say, I have now reached the peak. There is always room for growth. Now you can see why I founded Better People Consulting.
Yeah.
Because at any one time, we can become a better person.
Yeah.
And just to let you know, just to add in onto why some people think they do not know their talents, but actually they know. They think they don't know their strengths and weaknesses. They actually know. It's just that they have not brought it to their consciousness.
Okay.
They have not thought about it. And I have found a number of times when coaching people, when they come and they tell me, I don't understand me, I don't understand my weaknesses and my strengths. In fact, I ask, who are you? And many people are not even able to answer the question, who they are. So, but when I ask them a few questions, like on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you rate yourself on your sociability? On a scale of 1 to 10, how do you rate yourself in terms of health, in terms of your cognitive abilities, in terms of your emotional control? The more I ask you questions, even just self-assessment you'll start saying, now I see why I do it this way.
Yeah.
So everybody knows, but everybody needs a pointer. So if you want to know yourself better, do not stick there. Do not keep saying you don't know yourself. Actually, I like what Vincent said. Jesus actually knew who he was.
Yeah.
He knew what he was strong in. He was
Yes.
a teacher, and he spent a lot of time learning. That is why at some point he was getting lost in the church and in the temple, learning from doctors of the law, learning from. So he knew who he was. So we can easily improve ourselves if we know who we are, and that is a great concern in the world of productivity, because you are not. The reason many of us are not productive in this world is because they do not understand where they are heavily impactful and where they are not impactful at all. So you find some people, somebody who cannot probably talk and express themselves, they want to be a show presenter like you.
Yeah.
And the more they do it, the more they fail. The more they fail, the more they feel useless. It is not because they are useless. It's not because they are not good at anything. It's just because they are attempting things that are not good. So the very beginning of it is self-knowledge, self-awareness. And you can know who you are by probing into yourself. Like Vincent said, what are your natural flows? What are these things that come naturally to you? And if you work on them, balance, exercise the art of balancing in your life. Because look at it this way, just to use the same example, even for athletes, there are those people who run, but not all of them do the same race.
Yeah.
There are some that are marathoners, others are sprinters, others do other races.
Okay.
So what are you very good in? And it takes some work, it takes some time to continue probing, to ask yourself, to try it. And that is why even in education, we start from the very basic where we do so many things. So in primary school, you did science, you did math, you did social studies, you did English, Swahili, all those. Why? Because it is attempting many things that you'll be able to know, oh, I'm good in this, I'm not good in this. When you go to high school, you choose subjects that are now more aligned to your strengths. When you go to the university, you actually narrow down. So that our process of maturity and growth leads us to more specific niches and areas of strength.
Okay.
So do not hide in the statement that you do not understand your strength, you know. And if you do not, please seek assistance. Well, that is where we exist. I'm an industrial psychologist myself, and therefore practicing as a coach. And one question we are very keen on is, what is this thing that you can do so well in? Because if you do so well in that, you will heavily benefit the world. And as you benefit the world, you will also benefit yourself in a great way. And that's how we seek greatness.
Yeah.
That's why we say in everybody there is a seed of greatness.
Yes.
The thing is, it is very small right now.
It has to be
So it
cultivated.
may not be seen,
Yes.
and you may not even see it yourself. So it has to be cultivated until it becomes a huge tree.
Okay.
And that is what every one of us needs to do.
Okay, we have like 2 minutes, Vincent. So maybe you can share this in 2 minutes. How can I become more intentional about, growing my strengths?
Yeah, I think there is just no two-way about it. I mean, first of all, we just have to accept it as a fact. You have to grow your strength, and you have to be intentional about it. Now, by the time you get to a point where you absolutely know this is my strength, these are my weaknesses, then you know where you want to position yourself. Like, and I like this when people say, I don't know my talent, I don't know all this. It's true, because also the education system, socialization, parenting, and all that really throws you in so many different directions. There is just what everyone thinks this is what you should be, and all that. So we get to that age where we now need to define for ourselves, what is our purpose? What is our calling? Where do I thrive? Where will I be of the greatest impact? And so when you do that, then automatically applying the 80-20 rule should come naturally. I mean, it's not easy, but it's something that we should. So how can you be intentional? It's one, finding where there is support for that area of your interest. Is it through training? Do you want to acquire more knowledge around it? Do you want to get like a mentor? Do you want to get a coach? Do you want it's all those things. And again, like I said, if you spend just 20% of your time in making it work, it definitely works. So I would say just finding where the support is, and plugging into the support. The support system that is available for it. But you have to be very clear in your mind that this is what I want, and I want to I want to harness this to be of impact. And for me, I think that is how you find your purpose.
Okay.
So spending whatever resources, whether time and everything, and focusing on building that particular area where you've identified as your strength.
Okay. Gentlemen, unfortunately, my time is up. I wish we had more time to dig deeper into this discussion, but thank you for what you have shared with us today. Asanteni sana.
Thank you very much, James. Always a pleasure being in the show.
Okay. We have to wrap it up for this week.
Thank you for watching. Remember, subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can get notified whenever we upload new fresh content every day. Stay tuned and enjoy fresh, uplifting content.